Alright, on the table here, you see all the basic parts for the economical system. You have your screwdriver, your little Allen wrench, but keep in mind that when you open up the unit, it's already going to have those tools available, okay? Here you have the thermal kiosk unit itself, you have the temperature module, the back plate, and the small plates with the screws that allow it to be secured to the bracket itself. And you have your 12-volt DC power supply. So the first part we're going to do here is assemble the kiosk unit with a temperature module. So the first part right here is the temperature module, and you're going to secure that onto the back plate. Now this has already been done before, but just to let you know, there's going to be 3 screw holes. You're going to secure the 3 screws into those holes. Once they're tightened, there's a little plastic piece that you're going to push into it, which sticks on to secure it. After that's done, you see here there's 3 small metal plates with screws. That's to fit over the cable here to secure it. So once you have the 3 metal plates secured, you're going to put the screws in. Once these 3 plates have been secured by the screws, we're ready to go to the next step. Alright, so the next step, we're going to do some basic assembly of the stand itself. Now the stand, you'll notice on the bottom has a black ring. Now when you open up the box, there's going to be 2 half circles. You're just going to go ahead and snap them into place to make a full circle. You're also going to notice there's a black long power cable that's going to be needed. So the next step is we're going to secure the back plate onto the stand itself. But one thing I also want to mention is you want to make sure that at least your cables are pulled out long enough to where they're kind of at least secured by tape so they don't fall back down the pipe. So what we're going to do is there's going to be 4 holes on the plate along with 4 holes on the stand here. That's where you're going to secure the screws. So you're going to slide the cables through, match up the holes, and then you're going to secure the 4 screws. So the next step is to secure the kiosk unit onto the metal plate here, okay? Now you're going to notice that there's going to be 4 holes on the kiosk itself, so you're going to secure them with screws. But before you do that, you're going to want to secure the connector cables first, okay? So one of the cables you want to secure first is the thermal module cable. Here, you connect them together. Also, you're going to see the male end of the power cable connected to the female end, and then you're going to have an Ethernet cable connected to the Ethernet port on the kiosk itself. Now, one of the things I like to do first is when you have all the cables secured, you may want to kind of wrap up each cable with like some kind of electrical tape just to secure the connections. So after the cables are connected, what you're going to want to do is get some tape, preferably electrical tape, but since I don't have electrical tape, this is just to simulate it. So what you're going to want to do is just wrap it around against each cable connection to make sure that they're snug and tight so they don't come loose. So after all the cables have been secured and also secured with tape, then what you're going to want to do is fish the cables right back down to the conduit hole so you can secure the kiosk onto the metal plate itself. So you're going to want to do 1 plate at a time because the connectors are kind of large, so they may get in the way of each other. So just make sure you be very careful when you do this because the cables are very sensitive, so you don't want to snap loose any cables. Okay, and you see this little groove here, you're going to want to kind of fit the cables into this groove so they have a nice secure place to sit. So after the kiosk has been secured to the back plate, you're going to put this plastic piece over here, right back on the U-shaped part here, where it covers the screws. Now, what you're going to want to do is make sure the sticky side is facing the side of the screws. Okay, so what you're going to do is just slide it over, like that. Make sure it's even on both sides, and then just press down, and it's then secure. So after everything's been assembled, what you're going to want to do is connect a 12-volt DC power supply to the power cable. Now, typical power supply is going to be a 12 volt, at least a minimum of 2 amps. Okay, so you don't want to use anything under 1 amp. Also, you'll notice a network cable that was fished out earlier. Now, this one's a shorter network cable, but just keep in mind that if you're going to connect this to a network and it's going to have to run a longer distance, then be sure to use a longer network cable. So this part is the initialization to where we set up the kiosk for the first time. When you first power on the unit, it's going to ask you to create a password, confirm a password, and then create an email. The purpose of the email is in case you forget your password but you still know your email, you can use that as a password recovery, okay? Now, one thing I want to mention is that the fact that there are no physical reset buttons on the kiosk itself. So if you forget your password and you forget your email, then what you can do is you can contact our technical support team here at ENS. We can use a special software called Config Tool to generate an XML file to give you a recovery file. So one of the first things you're going to do is when you first initialize it, you're going to also set up the system time. So you go to the system menu, go to time, make sure you either have it under a 24-hour system or a 12-hour system. Make sure your date, month, and year is correct, the time, the date format, and also the time zone. And then one of the things you're going to also do is if the environment that you have the kiosk in is very loud, you can always increase the volume. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the face parameter and adjust the settings. So by default, the temperature unit is set to Celsius, so you want to change it to Fahrenheit. The mask mode, you can either have it to not detect a mask or a mask reminder if you want to remind people if they're not wearing a mask. Okay. After that, the temperature, high temperature threshold by default set to 99.1. However, your location may have different high threshold values, so you may want to double check with them first. Temperature RECT is on by default. That's the red detection region to allow users to know what area they have to have their face in. Temperature monitoring is on. Your invalid face prompt interval is at 3 seconds, and your recognition timeout is at 3 seconds. Alright, and then one of the last steps that you want to do is when you first enable the system, you're also going to have to register at least one user by face. Okay? So you're going to go to the new user, you're going to put a name. It could be anybody's name or it could just be a test name as an example. Then you can register by face recognition. So as you see here, put my face, hit record, hit the check, and the user's added successfully.
Access granted. Access granted. Access granted. Access granted. Access granted. Please wear your face mask.